someone that's coming from solvent to water and the surface tension issue, because I want to bring this up because I think it's very important for people to hear this, because out there on social media, everyone, and I've been guilty of it, and I've kind of been showing the water-based stuff as a aside, but a lot of guys, a lot of solvent materials, like they come off the gun, they look like a sheet of glass. All right. The water stuff, some resins will do that. Others, it takes a little while for it to flow out. Can you just talk a little bit about that? Because I think people are confused about, how this works. Because like I said, I've shot a lot of different water base, and some of them you're like, oh my gosh, that looks terrible. It's orange peely. I've got to fix my gun. I got to fix this. Can you touch on that for a little bit?
Yeah, and depending on depending on the resin that's being used, like you said, it could be depending on the temperature that's being applied, could depend on the material that is being applied on top of. You could have a different wet film appearance from product to product. Yeah. You definitely want to let it dry down and make sure there's not any issues. Especially if you're looking at anything that's higher than the higher gloss material, not necessarily full sheen. But there is a natural kind of ripple just because you're dealing with this water in there, and until some of that water escapes and the surface tension of the resin and the coalescing solvents and our additives can take over, you're really not going to. It's unlikely, unless you put a very heavy film, that you're going to get a glass-like surface. And if you do have that, it may not even dry down to the glass smooth surface. It can be deceptive that way as well.
Sure. Out there, I feel like on, how water base flows out. And like you said, and I'm glad you brought that up too as well, that it depends on the resin. That's one of the things. I was visiting another company doing some training with them, and I specifically asked that question. I was like, why does this product of you guys, it looks, awesome off the gun in this one? And he talks about, well, it's just a difference in the resin and the flow additives and everything that's in the material. But the end result was beautiful for both of them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's very true. And a lot of it is just, I tend to look at what the finished film is going to look like. Just because I understand that, as this material dries down, it's going to go through different stages. Yeah. As long as I don't create any kind of Bernard cells or something like film defect, I'm going to allow that material to just flow out naturally to see how it's coming down. Yeah. We use a lot of polyurethane resins as opposed to acrylics. They tend to have a better natural flow in the water-based than acrylics and solvent-based are very stable, very, very common, and they've been used for a very long time. So they look great. But in the water-based, the acrylic resin range tends to have a little bit poorer flow than the polyurethanes.